name's Ashley Morris, Field Marketing Manager at Tealium, and I have the pleasure of thanking you all for joining the fourth webinar in our series, Summer of Data Love Playlist. Now more than ever, we're seeing that customer experience really is the new battleground. And regardless of your industry, consumers have high expectations. To innovate today, you need to be able to understand your customers through data. You need to be tuned into their needs, their interests, their privacy requests, and their expectations. At Tealium, we believe there are 5 principles for creating meaningful customer experiences based on data. This also serves as our framework for the 5-week summer series. To help you remember these principles, we've created the acronym TUNED. Trusted, unified, now, everywhere, and delight. The third principle and the focus of today's session is everywhere. Buyers require a relevant and consistent experience across all channels, which is where we're going to spend some time today. Before we begin today's webinar, taking the cross-channel plunge, Swan dive into consistent customer experiences, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes and will be recorded. The recording will be made available after the session. We have some related resources available for you in the attachments and links section of the platform, so please feel free to engage with them at any point. If there's something that you find helpful or important during the webinar, we encourage you to share it socially, and you can mention at Tealium, at Quantum Metric, and at Invoca. We do want to hear your questions. Please use the Q&A feature to submit them during the presentation. For any that we're not able to answer live, we'll definitely follow up with you after. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Ted Spikas is the North American RVP of Tealium Solutions Consulting Organization, a team that works with Tealium's customers to build strategic solutions that work with the customer data hub and automate the data supply chain. Ted has over 20 years of experience with a number of leading organizations within digital marketing, social platforms, SaaS-based telephony and messaging, ITSM, and automated quality assurance technologies. Christine is the Director of Product Marketing at Quantum Metric, where she is helping to evangelize continuous product design, a cross-team approach to building better digital products faster based on shared, quantified, and continuous view of customer signals. Lauren is the Director of Product Management at Invoca. With a team of engineers, she builds integrations that connect digital and conversation data to help companies surface more insights about why customers are leaving their digital journey and picking up the phone to call, enabling companies to deliver better experiences, both online and on the phone. And with that, let's get started. Ted, over to you.
Thanks, Ashley. Today we'll be covering a number of themes related to a modern customer-centric strategy. You'll hear about why customer experience is more important than ever, and we'll explore some common continuity challenges and frustrations that customers are currently going through. A lot of those frustrations are because of cross-channel needs that technology is not properly set up to deliver. So we'll highlight the solutions that will fix these things, and then we'll wrap it up with some key takeaways for customer happiness. All right, here's a statement that most of you have probably heard for a long time now. But in 2020, it bears special emphasis. 2020 has generally been considered the year that accelerated an already existing movement by the industry in general to a digital transformation. For many years, marketing departments have known that customer data was moving to new plateaus in importance. Whether it was given the name Customer 360, single view of the customer, Customer One, just to name a few, the sentiment around this has all been the same. Brands all share the same goal, which is to unify customer engagement touchpoints for the purpose of learning more about their customers in real time. The data that they collect is enormous and needs to scale across internal IT departments, security, privacy, and marketing business units. And once the entire brand is in sync, the insights we can learn promise new revenue streams, and the actions we take on that data become very exciting to think about. Unfortunately, regardless of the amount of time and financial investments that brands have made thus far, most of them, on the whole, have not yet succeeded in this new customer-centric mandate. Now, whatever the name it is in your company, it is likely that you're experiencing a multitude of issues in achieving it. That's because, despite all of these software solutions you've purchased, they each have their specific features and functions. They They all have their own customer engagement tactics. They all have their own analytics tools. They all have their own proprietary databases. And they all aren't talking to each other the way you need them to. The average company has over 70 different technologies that they have to coordinate to unify customer data. And the problem facing brands is extracting the value of all of this information in the automation. You paid for a technology in order to realize the financial savings of running solutions. And so you also expect these technologies to drive revenue. When you buy an email service provider, you expect the right combination of email features to deliver your task efficiently with the least amount of manual labor possible. When you invest heavily in a CRM, you need it to be a true CRM that streamlines the heavily involved, time-consuming process of nurturing customer relationships. Your mobile team's working on an app. They're focused on the app and what it can do to drive new revenue streams, but they're working in a silo. In other words, you're likely getting what you paid for in all of these areas, but one thing that's happened as a result of your smart investments of time and money is that each of them have accumulated their own siloed insights that may not be accurate. Or on the flip side, these insights are actually important and accurate, and the rest of the business units aren't enabled with this information because it's costly, time-consuming, and really high maintenance to get all of these tools talking to each other. The impact? The customer herself is not receiving a unified experience because the silos aren't aware of her interactions with each other. This is the point where somebody says, make them talk to each other. And that's also the point where somebody replies, we're gonna need a lot of time and money to do that, and it's gonna be a task that never ends. So we know that we have to change the way that we manage our customers' experience because they are not slowing down. In fact, they are evolving to become even more sophisticated. Today's average household has an average of 11 connected devices, and consumers themselves are looking at 7 devices with a screen on the average. All of these devices have apps and browsers to fully exploit the multi-channel sophistication of the consumer today. The consumer sees a wide variety of engagement touchpoints with all of the brands and wants more. They expect their privacy to be respected. They expect their preferences and personalization to be targeted intuitively. They expect your business to offer a wide assortment of different capabilities to focus on the experience. This is what all of those buzzwords ultimately add up to, a truly sincere strategy of putting the customer first. Brands that embrace this mandate will make smart investments continuously. But one thing must be solved first and foremost, and that is the realization that data is the most important asset moving forward. For a brand to operate profitably and gain well-deserved loyalty, all of the hundreds of apps and systems and websites must use the same customer data to drive real-time, purposeful engagement that brings the brand to a modern operating level that meets the expectations of its customers.
Ted, I'm going to build on your point about the acceleration of digital in 2020 and what the impact of that has been on brands with some data in these next few slides. So the point I'm going to make is that there have been a lot of gaps, or we could say opportunities, in how we understand our customers and how fast we can move to adapt and pivot in response to new customer behaviors and engagement with our brand. So let's start with this data point here that brings it to life. As you can imagine, there was a big wave of new to digital consumers for a lot of brands in March as digital went from being a channel to being the only channel. And we've heard from so many retailers that they're seeing Black Friday numbers every day. You know, the bad news is that it's not making up for overall revenue in most cases, but you know, the good news is that customers have learned new behaviors. They're adopting to a much lower cost channel with massive opportunities for personalization. And this trend isn't going to reverse, even as states reopen. Of course, it's not just been a walk in the park. So there's the opportunity, but what this next chart and the next one show you is that companies haven't really been ready for that surge. And there's some good indicators that it's also been a very bumpy ride for customers. In Quantum Metric, we capture all kinds of real-time customer signals, some of which you can see on this slide. So while there's been this big wave of new digital consumers in March this year, you can see here that there's also been a significant uptick in signals like cart abandonment, what we refer to as frustration in the middle here, which can be anything from a customer clicking multiple times very fast and nothing's happening, or if they're, scrolling up and down a page really fast. These are things that we studied over time and usually indicate that a customer isn't able to accomplish what they came to do. And technical errors that get in the way of a customer's experience and impede their ability to accomplish their task, such as content not loading or a button not working. So March was a tough month for many brands who weren't ready for that digital surge, but this chart shows two things. One, that trend is mostly continuing. So the red peak here shows that a lot of travelers were turning to online support in March, which makes a lot of sense because shutdowns were announced and travelers needed to cancel or postpone flights, or maybe they hadn't logged in a really long time and were having trouble. And as you can expect, this leveled off as people have been looking or booking travel a lot less in the spring and summer. But more interestingly is what you see in the green and black lines. And this represents an overall upward trend of customers turning to online support since March in other sectors like retail and financial services. The black line is showing financial services, which is seeing a 50% increase in support sessions online, and retail at 200%. So why is that? It obviously varies widely, but a good working hypothesis is that when you have a lot of new visitors to your site, a lot of visitors with very high intent, combined with experiences that haven't been optimized before COVID and a lot of experiences that weren't optimized as quickly as needed to support new customer behaviors. So the impact here, as you can imagine, is when customers experience frustration on your site or need support, there's usually one or two things that happen. They abandon or they call your call center.
So in that second scenario, there's a challenge that many companies face when there isn't a unified view. So Ted talked earlier about siloed solutions and how often each does their job really well, but the solutions aren't connected. They're not talking to each other. As an example, in my web analytics, I might be able to see the specific marketing source that drove my visit. I might be able to follow my path to different pages on the site. I might even be able to see how long my customers are spending on each page. But that's kind of the end of my visibility. I can't see sources of frustration or get a good handle on engagement. I need extra context. Similarly, on the call side, an agent answering the phone often has zero context about the marketing channel that drove a customer to call, who they are, or why they're calling. They have limited understanding of the digital journey, and there is absolutely no continuity between the two worlds. Now, let's see how that changes by introducing technology solutions like Quantum Metric, Tealium, and Invoca.
Let's take a look at a popular customer journey that we see in the hotel and hospitality industry today to highlight the collective value of using Tealium, Quantum Metric, and Invoca in a customer-centric approach. So many hotels today are targeting their known VIP business travelers with promotions and customer experience techniques to drive increased stays at their properties. In this case, a hotel chain launches an email campaign targeted towards a conversion funnel for high-value business travelers. The chain is highlighting special rates at each traveler's local hotel locations, and also is leveraging the latest work-from-home approaches to promote a quiet space that business travelers can remotely work in. One such high-value business traveler is a fellow named Jamie. You can see here that he has been personified by Tealium as a business traveler who uses mobile devices and also desktop devices to engage with the brand. Jamie's a young professional with roommates, mostly been working from his bedroom. He could really use some time away to focus on an upcoming project. He clicks on that email ad using his iPhone, does a quick scan of the offer, but he has to jump to a meeting. So that offer stays in his inbox for Jamie to browse in more detail later using his laptop. Now that he's had time to think about his hotel needs a little longer, Jamie toggles using his laptop between many brands that this hotel chain is promoting to find the best combination of price, amenities, and service. Now, these activities qualify him as a cross-brand converter because he's jumping from sub-brand to sub-brand and looking at all the hotels. We also see that he is constantly looking for a Monday to Friday stay. indicating that this engagement is of high value to the hotel chain. The data automation technology sees the click streams from hotel to hotel and sees the experience moving forward, just as expected.
Okay, so let's imagine now that Jamie starts to enter his details to make a reservation, but he has a nagging thought about the Wi-Fi situation. You know, he's on video calls all day long. He has to make sure the connection is going to be reliable and fast. So he navigates to a different FAQ and amenities pages and tries to look at some online reviews. You know, he's really trying to figure out what the situation with the Wi-Fi is, but nothing's giving him confidence that the Wi-Fi is going to be sufficient. So Quantimetric is detecting that frustration. We have out of the box anomaly detection. And in this case, what we're picking up is the rapid clicking around and toggling between the two hotel locations as an indication that he's showing some frustration. So as soon as that happens, we're sending that to Tealium, and he's tagged in Tealium in real time with frustration. It's been over 5 minutes now, and he's still on the site. He hasn't completed his transaction. So now what Quantimetric will do is send that time on site data to Tealium, and that combined with the frustration badge gives him an abandonment risk badge in real time. This now triggers a real-time prompt that proactively asks Jamie if he'd like to speak to a live agent, because we don't want him to churn and we want to help him complete his transaction.
At this stage, Jamie decides to call the hotel location and see if they can provide the reassurance he's after with respect to the Wi-Fi. Now, this is a key piece in the digital journey. Invoca is able to tap into data that Quantimetric shared with Tealium right at the start of the phone call. The fact that this is a high-value business traveler and he experienced frustration in the digital session means that Jamie gets to skip the usual IVR, you know, that menu that makes you choose a key press option to connect you with the right agent. And instead, he's sent straight to an available person that can help. Jamie gets his question answered about the internet and is ready to make a booking. Now, the great thing is that Invoca can share this outcome with Tealium, and it can be used in a ton of different ways, from ad suppression or upsells to making it available to Quantimetric in the next session. Speaking of that next session, this information can be used to improve the ad copy. So since internet reliability and speed is going to be a pretty important part of anyone taking advantage of this offer, the hotel can add details to their email messages and their landing pages. What's more is that while this is a specific story about an individual, this is completely scalable. It's not like you have to sit and listen to thousands of call recordings to understand call outcomes. Invoca is able to surface amazing insights using machine learning and can actually group calls based on topics, allowing companies to identify trends in customer behavior and needs. So once those trends are identified and you home in on the subset of calls, you can get granular insights through those call recordings and even the session replays. So Christine, I know that Quantimetric has a powerful and scalable approach here too.
Yeah, Lauren, it's a similar story in Quantimetric. So we've made Jamie's experiences that much better, but what about all the other customers like Jamie? So Quantimetric is aggregating the data on customers who have a similar profile, experience the same frustration, and also might abandon cart. And an analyst or a product manager who's using Quantimetric can get a real-time alert or see this show up as an opportunity in our platform, which means that we've automatically aggregated the impact on all users, help them determine the segment that's impacted and how much it's costing, and then watch a few replays, as you said, to quickly validate that there is a revenue blocker that can be easily resolved with a messaging fix that is, you know, worth escalating to the dev team.
That's extremely powerful. And so the example with Jamie certainly covers the point at which each solution is providing more visibility and more data. But the question comes up, where exactly do these systems work together to stitch the customer journey? So Quantimetric sends frustration and engagement data to Tealium to enrich that customer profile. In real time, Invoca gets data from the enriched Tealium customer profile and uses that for call routing. After the call, Invoca sends the call and conversational data, including those conversions, back to Tealium for ad targeting and a whole lot more. And then Tealium enriches that customer profile with the call interaction data, which is now made available to Quantum Metric for that next web session, which is pretty cool. So if you think about this, for every web or app session, for every customer interaction, and for every phone call, you're able to continuously collect data, learn, iterate, and adapt, which is a super powerful and beautiful thing, especially these days. This is how you create those great experiences that retain happy customers and drive more conversions. So if we kind of take a look back at what we covered in the last few slides, I think there are kind of three takeaways. The first is customer-centric. Understanding your customers helps drive retention and revenue. This is a no-brainer. Businesses need to know what is working and what isn't. This is driven by what customers need at any given point in time. And you know, their needs are going to change. Look at how much our needs have changed in the last 4 months. Being able to understand and then adapt is what translates to conversions, and that translates to revenue. But this must be backed with data. That's super important. So speaking of data, surfacing deeper insights is key. Click streams and conversions give you a partial view, but session replays and call recordings can really give extra context that helps you surface those deeper insights. It's important to be sure you are tracking the whole journey, not just what is available in the various silos that kind of organically materialize. Don't just track website visits, their path to fallout, and the time spent on your site, even those things are important. But you should also track which flows are causing frustrations and address that friction. And make sure that this data can be married up into a view that allows you to glean insights, which brings us to our third bullet, which is probably one of the most imperative and important. Unifying data is imperative to extract value from all of your systems. It's important to explore avenues to get your different technologies talking to each other. This is where a solution that offers tools to manage and execute your customer data supply chain seamlessly plays a crucial role. So make sure that you have that source of truth that is automated, scalable, and certainly most importantly, real time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ted, Christine, and Lauren. We really appreciate your time and all of the insights. It looks like we might have time for a few questions. Here's a good first one from the chat. Christine, I'll point this to you. How does Quantum Metric capture those frustration signals? Is it through AI?
Oh yeah, that's a fun question. So we're deployed once via a couple lines of JavaScript or through an SDK for your native app. And once that happens, we start capturing everything that a user does or experiences on your digital properties. So that includes behaviors like taps, clicks, goals, cut and paste, technical errors like app crashes or API failures, and the anomaly detection. So that's where the frustration signals comes in. It's powered through machine intelligence. And we can capture and send that data to Tealium. We can alert you in real time on anomalies. And like I mentioned, some of those earlier rage clicks, long running spinners, things like that, we've got dozens of those out of the box algorithms. We can customize them, and we're always adding new ones.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. Our next question is going to be for Tealium. So Ted, does Tealium's CDP support any machine learning features that Quantum Metric and Invoca can leverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very timely as well, because we have recently released our Tealium Predict product, which represents a machine learning capability that is operating as data is flowing into the CDP system. What Tealium will do is create new attributes of every customer. And these attributes are focused on likelihood and propensity. So the percentage chance that you might get frustrated, the likelihood that you will need to pick up the phone and switch channels to a customer agent using Invoca. So whereas before, Tealium's perfectly set up to react to different customer engagement and invoke different technologies such as Quantum Metric and Invoca, now we can be predictive in this. And it all starts with data. No changes needed to Quantum Metric, to Invoca, or any other technology in your stack. You simply drive off the machine learning insights within the customer data set and are flexibly able to move from there.
Thanks, Ted. Our last question is going to be for Invoca. Lauren, how does Invoca associate calls and call outcomes to the session replay and the individual?
It's a little bit of magic. In reality, we have a concept of dynamic numbers. So essentially, when you visit a site and the Invoca tag is implemented, we're going to show a unique phone number to that individual. So if the individual ends up calling, they're going to be able to associate all of the online attribution data, such as query string parameters, cookie parameters, or even anything in the data layer that's made available through Tealium too. We're going to associate that to the phone call based on that unique number being dialed. Now, once the phone call is being tracked by Invoca, we do have machine learning that's sort of analyzing the conversation between the caller and the agent. And the great thing about our signal discovery product is that, you know, without any supervision, it's completely unsupervised machine learning, we're able to surface topics of conversation automatically. And this is really an exciting area because customers can go in and discover sort of all of these different conversations that are happening. And it becomes very powerful to be able to tag future calls with those outcomes and then share the data with a solution like Tealium and Quantum Metric.
Very cool. Thank you for that description.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have today for questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted them. For those that we weren't able to answer live today, we'll be sure to follow up with you after. As a thank you for attending our Summer of Data Love playlist series, you've been automatically entered for a chance to win a $100 gift card to Live Nation for a future concert of your choice. Winner will be selected and contacted this afternoon. We want to remind you that you'll have the opportunity to win a Live Nation gift card for each webinar that you attend in the series. And if you join us live for all 5, you'll be entered to win a music lover's prize of your choice valued at over $300. If you found this webinar to be helpful, we encourage you to join again next week for the final track in our series playlist, A Summer Tech Sunrise, Creating a Colorful Customer Experience with our partner Iterable, where we'll be discussing how to marry a growth marketing platform and a customer data platform to engage customers along the full lifecycle journey. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to check out the related resources in the attachments and links section. We'll see you all next time.